This is how you can throw a perfect spiral every time. There are 3 keys to throwing a perfect spiral every time. The first one is going to be your index finger. So your index finger, when you let go of the ball, is your spiral finger. You want that to be the last finger to make contact with the ball because that is what helps you spin the ball off your hand and flick your wrist to get that consistent spin. Now, a lot of guys struggle with this like kind of index finger method because of 2 things. Number 1, their index finger will be too low. If your index finger is on like this like white stripe, or maybe it's a little bit above it, that might be too low of an index finger and you may not have as much control. The ball might almost feel like it comes off of your pinky at times. So what you can do is move this index finger up a little bit higher. It shouldn't be as high as you can go because that's just flat out uncomfortable, but just like in a good, decent range, good amount away from this white stripe. Now, the other thing that could happen with guys is that they may not feel like they just have any control. They feel like the ball's coming off their middle finger, their ring finger. Try to apply a little bit more pressure with your index finger to the ball because that will make it be the last finger that comes off your hand. And obviously your grip placement matters, but we're gonna get into that throughout this video. Now, before we get into the second tip to throw a perfect spiral every time, we are going to be coming out to 15 different states across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So if you're a quarterback or wide receiver and would like to train with us, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to one of our off-season camps. We're coming out to 15 different cities, like I said. We're coming out to San Francisco, Miami, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, Charlotte, North Carolina, Portland, Oregon, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Chicago, Illinois, Buffalo, New York, Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, Boise, Idaho, and finishing it off in Los Angeles, California. So again, if you guys like some more information, want to train with us, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get back to this video. The second key to throwing a perfect spiral every time is having a grip that works well for you. Now, there are so many grips out there that you see different quarterbacks have. Some people might have their index finger really high, like we mentioned. Some people might have it in a more neutral position. Some people might have their ring finger and their index finger a little bit closer together. And honestly, that's totally fine. I'm not going to tell you one grip is right or wrong, but there's 2 specific keys that I think all quarterbacks need to focus on to help them spin the ball consistently. You might spin it 1 or 2 times, but not consistently, and this can help. First one is going to be having a gap between your palm and the football. You should see like a kind of small gap of like light. If you hold your hand up, you should be able to see the sky, but that gap is going to allow you to control the ball with your fingers, and your fingers is ultimately how this ball spins off your hand better. Now, second thing, and this honestly happens a lot with quarterbacks who have smaller hands, and I'm talking about you younger guys or guys who may be moving up a ball size, but they will grip the ball and their thumb will be insanely high. If your thumb is above this white stripe, you are not going to be able to control the ball into something called your backstroke, right? Like every single quarterback, when they go to throw, you see a lot of professional guys do it. They go back and they get to this like opposite L angle. If your thumb is high, you will not be able to control the ball and you end up pushing the ball. So maybe move your thumb a little bit lower. Your thumb should be just slightly below or slightly even with this white stripe to give you that nice clean grip to where you can control the ball, but also let this thing roll off your fingers. Now, the third key to throwing a perfect spiral every time is maybe a little bit more advanced. You may not know this entirely, but it has to do with keeping your shoulders completely parallel to the target when you throw. What do I mean by that? So if I'm going to throw as a quarterback, a very old school method that a lot of older school quarterback coaches used to teach would be take your front shoulder and you want to end up replacing it with where your back shoulder was when you throw it to quote unquote follow through. But all that's going to do is flaw your release point, which can prevent you from throwing a perfect spiral every time. So let me explain. So if you go to throw, every time when you throw, your body is divided on something called your midline, which is essentially like your spine. It goes all the way from the top of your head all the way down to the floor. So when you guys go to throw, you want to try to release with this football inside of your body frame, right? You do not want your arm to be crazy high. It's okay if you have a high release point, but not straight up extended. And you also don't want your arm slot to be insanely wide outside of your body frame. A lot of quarterbacks try to change their quote unquote arm slot, but they have a very undisciplined front shoulder, which prevents spin. Let me explain. So when you go to throw, if you go back with the ball, but this front shoulder is ripping open, that's pulling your arm off of this like midline point, if you will. It's outside your frame and your release point's coming across your body. How many of you young quarterbacks finish with your hand almost facing upward? Usually that has nothing to do with you flicking your wrist like a lot of quarterback coaches like to say. It has everything to do with your front side discipline. So when you go to throw and you finish on the ball, you want to keep your hand either slightly even with your collarbone, up by your mouth like you're eating a sandwich, or something I like to say is you want to bring your throwing shoulder and touch it to your front hand, because now your shoulders can stay level. Your release can stay inside your frame, and then all the stuff we talked about in this video, you could actually snap and extend to the target, which will give you better finish on the ball. So we cannot be this guy, fellas. We can't be swinging open, causing my arm to widen. Let's focus on keeping my shoulders and my hips and my shoulders parallel to the target so I can snap and finish.